I am pleased to welcome Jerry Robito, a Democrat from Lawrence, a retired Middleton Jail Deputy Superintendent. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you have that make you feel qualified to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
Okay. I started my career in 1975 at the Lawrence Jail. Back in the Lawrence Jail, the situation was a little different than it is today, where we had no radios, no response teams. We didn't have an abundance of officers that worked, so back then you had to really learn how to talk to inmates. So I worked there till about 85, then I went on to transportation. Got a job in transportation going all over the state, different police departments, hospitals, jails, transporting. In 91, the new jail opened up in Middleton. I got promoted to captain. I oversaw the recreation department where inmates would come and work out in the gym. I put a schedule together, making it possible for the entire jail to come to the gym to play basketball or whatever it may be, lifting weights. And about 2000, I transferred to the farm, and that was a kind of interesting job. I ran work release. And in that job, I got inmates jobs in the communities. I would go out to different communities, different industrial parks and so forth and so on, and sell the product. The product is why it would be a good investment bringing inmates in to work in the communities. But what I also found out, excuse me, I have allergies, I'm taking medication for it, is that a lot of companies wanted inmates that were marketable, that had job skills. 70% of inmates that come to jail have 7th grade educations. 90% of them have no qualifications whatsoever. They have drug problems, so when they come to jail at the present state, they go into drug programs. They also take a GED, which is fine, which is nice, but unfortunately, that's not enough to help these kids when they get out of jail. Our job is to make them so they don't come back to jail. We have to make them marketable, number one. How do we make them marketable? We got to give them trades. Many, many companies have told me on a regular basis, these kids need trades. We need trades. So trades is number one. Number two, we certainly have to have an aftercare program once they get released. A lot of people don't know, which I do, because working in a jail for 34 years, you hear a lot of stories. I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of inmates. When they get out, it's a transition. It's a strange transition. They feel uncomfortable. They don't feel wanted. They don't know where they're going. We need a resource center, an aftercare center, where they can go to on a regular basis so we can keep their heads focused on where they need to go. So I did that program for 2 or 3 years. I then got another promotion. I came back to Middleton, and I was the shift commander of the second shift at Middleton, responsible for the care, custody, and control of 1,200 inmates and 300 officers. My responsibility, obviously, was to make sure that the inmates were treated fairly, the programs were in place, officer safety. I dealt with lawyers. I dealt with doctors. I dealt with a multitude of different agencies that would call on their clients. So I had a lot of interaction with the outside as well. In 2004, I got promoted, and I was the deputy superintendent in charge of all of housing. So I was responsible for, again, about 1,200 inmates and well over 300 officers. So it's basically the same job, but on a larger scale. I have a clear understanding of inmates. I know what they're all about. If I walk through the door on day one, I know the strengths and weaknesses of all the staff. Very important. When you're working in a jail, you can't have someone come in and it be an experiment and then say, well, I don't really know the job, but who's in charge? What do we do? Who's next in charge? I know everyone in a high position. I know their strengths and weaknesses and what needs to be done. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. And why did you want to run for sheriff?
I left the department in 2009. A lot of people from the department kept in touch with me. Started to hear different things that were going on. They've had multiple suicides at the jail. They actually had an inmate transferred to the farm, and most people won't understand this, but he was considered a pretrial inmate. He was arrested in Lynn, the judge put a no bail. No bail means he doesn't want him leaving the jail. This inmate was transferred to the farm, gross negligence in regards to security, to the farm the next day. So you got an inmate down there for domestic assault on a female at the farm, escapes the next day, goes back to Lynn, and fortunately, he didn't get out and get the victim. So things like that have been going on a regular basis. You have a female inmate, officer, excuse me, a female officer that works at the jail, ends up having a relationship with an inmate, brings a cell phone into the inmate, brings drugs into the inmate. What happens? Instead of her being charged to send a message to the officers, we don't tolerate, we have zero tolerance for this. This woman was allowed to resign. Unacceptable. So I realized, you know what? Someone needs to come in there that knows the security, what needs to be done, and put things back where they need to be. The safety of the officers, the safety of the public, very important. The revolving door of inmates coming and going has to stop, because that revolving door affects the taxpayers. The taxpayers that suffer the consequences. The inmates that keep coming back to jail, it affects the taxpayers because they break into their houses. Those are the ones that are subjected to this. Mm-hmm. So I feel as though with my 34 years of experience, I can come in there and make it the way it should be. Care, custody, control, be very strict, and be very cautious about who's down the farm.
What do you think are the two major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with those issues? Are those some of the issues you've just mentioned?
Well, the opiate problem is number one. Okay, you don't put a drug addict in jail, put him in a program, keep him in jail for 2 years, and then when his sentence expires, you send him out the door, and he's done.
Are you talking about putting him in a program in jail?
They're in a program in jail, but the problem is that's not enough. They need a program when they get out of jail. They need someplace to go. Okay, there's not enough aftercare programs in place, and I'll give you a good example. Last week, I had the opportunity to go to a homeless shelter. I walked in, and to my surprise, there happened to be 2 ex-inmates in there that I had in Middleton. One of them did 5 years. He did 4 years up in Walpole. His last year, he was down the farm. Went down the farm, was in a program, no job, no place to live. He ends up under the bridge again. The second guy, he did 2 years in Middleton, was released to the street with no place to live, no money, no job. Unacceptable, unacceptable.
And the second thing that you would do, what kind of change or improvement?
And the second thing I would do is...
Sorry, I asked you what you thought were the 2 major issues.
Opiate problem is number 1. Yep. Number 2 is making these guys more marketable, so when they get out, they can have a fair shot, get a job in society, and possibly do the right thing. I had a guy, when I was on work release, I bumped into him 2 weeks ago. I got him a job 15 years ago at a black tie limo. It's a limousine service, cleaning limos. He's been there for 15 years. He's been clean, doing the right thing. That made me feel happy. Now, if I send 10 guys out into the community and get them 10 jobs, am I going to save all 10? No. But if we can work hard at saving 3 or 4, we're doing something.
Okay, well, what changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
Well, the first thing I do is we wouldn't send pre-release inmates to the farm. Pre-release inmates are inmates that police departments arrest them today, come to jail, and a handful of them go to the farm the next day. These are inmates that are fresh off the street, that are still on drugs, it's still in the system, their mindset is still street-minded. The farm is an open concept. There's no security down the farm. Okay, the way it used to be is the farm used to be a merit system. You go to Middleton, you get sentenced. You become a model inmate, then you work your way to the farm. And then once you're down the farm, as a reward, then we get your job. But now it's reversed. They're actually sending inmates down the farm that just got arrested. That would stop. That would stop immediately. It's unacceptable. The other thing I would stop is, if we're talking about drugs and alcohol, you don't take an inmate and put him in give him a job in a restaurant where there's alcohol. There's at least been in the last 2 years, there's been at least 10 inmates that have been picked up at these restaurants for going downstairs drinking, and they were blind drunk. Unacceptable. It's not conducive for rehabilitation. That would stop.
Okay. Why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Because of my years of experience in the jail, the positions I held, I'm well-rounded. I understand the mindset. I know what needs to be done to get these guys from coming back to jail. And more importantly, I know what needs to be done for the safety of the officers that are working there. There's a multitude of officers that are in positions that they've been getting hurt on a regular basis because of things that are going on inside. So it's a threefold. The public first, safety, care, custody, and control of inmates, and the safety of the officers. And I've had 34 years in the job, not somewhere else on a police department, in the jail, in this very county. So that's what I bring to the table.
Okay. Well, what else would you like to, we're sort of winding down now, so what else would you like to tell the folks who are watching right now about yourself?
About myself? Well, I consider myself a team player. I owned a karate school for 28 years, and I taught thousands and thousands of kids. And what's very important is when you get kids, discipline is a very important part of life. The discipline will keep these kids on the right track. If you don't have discipline, you won't have any direction. So that's one thing about me. Team building. My karate school, we had team building. We work as a team. Okay, so I bring my team building from my 28 years of service from the sheriff's department, from my karate school, bring it into the sheriff's department. And because the one thing you have to do is you have to have people at work, especially in an environment like a jail, these people have to be happy about the surroundings. And I feel as though that's what I have to offer, that additional part to it, is I can offer that to them, as well as the fact that I was an officer and I experienced the things that they go through on a daily basis dealing with inmates.
Well, that's great. A lot of information.
Thank you.
And I wish you good luck in the primary.
Thank you so much.